So I've kind of been noodling around over here to get my bearings, and I've got a little bit of shadow here, the beginnings of shadow on the arm. And I did some stuff in here that kind of broke it up and naturalized it a little bit. I darkened that leaf. Probably not enough. And I'm not through with the faces. In fact, the child looks really distorted. Her face looks really strange right now. And I need a lot more shadow in through here and a lot of things. But right now I've been playing with this area, and because I don't want to spend forever doing all of this on the internet. So now I'm going to come over here and do some of what I did over there for you. That would be first. And then we'll come back to the shirt. And then we'll worry about other stuff. So, I went in and I got phthalo green, the blue shade of phthalo green, and put a little bit of rose into it to make this like really dark green like that. You can see that I don't have it, the mixture's not super strong. It's still pretty soupy, but it's a very, the colors are very rich, so it comes off as really dark. And I'm just going to pick a spot. I put a lot of detail right in over here, and I can't have that much detail all through it. It would just overwhelm us. But I thought I could use more of it right up in here, or right in through there maybe. So I'm going to come over here, and maybe if I illustrated the shapes. I just tried to kind of noodle around with just stuff like that, but very wet. You know, it's very soupy. And then I can come in with my wet brush and just touch some edges. Of course, this is going to be on top of areas that are already got quite a bit of color. And so I touch a lot of edges and soften them, but not all of them. So you get something like that. It could even get a little bit of water inside it, so you get some of those little dark edges in some places. I love those things. I could also touch it in with just tiny bits of red to make that go darker. Well, that looks like a little too much. On top of this other, it's not so bad, but let's see. Let's just... Okay, I did stuff like that. So that's what I'm going to do right in here. So I'm loading up my brush, and this is very wet. I think this is a little wetter than what I just showed you, because I've got my brush tilted this way, and this is a round brush, and so you get a lot of paint running off the edges. Let's just add a few little spots up there. And of course, I'm only going to do so much of this before I stop and soften some edges. But whatever I've got there, I need to come over here and take up some of that. It shouldn't just dead stop right there. Now, how much of this am I going to do? I really don't know yet. Again, maybe I'll make some of those shapes a little bit bigger, but I'm keeping a lot of them pretty small. It just creates a certain amount of busyness, like there's something natural growing back in here. When you do this, be real careful that you don't drip that phthalo green on your faces or anything. That would be pretty much disastrous. I would cry if I did that. I might cry anyway. Okay, so here, I'm going to wash my brush out. In fact, I'm not even going to carry my brush over the faces because there might be a little green left in this. I'm going to just go around this way. Now, I've got a lot of water in this brush, so I want some of this to run right up to the edge of the tree. You know, you don't want to make a halo effect around the tree. Okay, cleaning that brush. You know, I like those little spots up there so much. I think I might just leave them, but maybe I'll blot them so they're not quite so dark. I don't know quite what to think of that. You see, you can see how I'm getting these pale, glowing areas that have that background coming through. Some of the yellows in the background are coming through. It's really kind of pretty. That banging noise you hear is my dog trying to get my attention. She's decided there must be something important in the wastebasket, and there's really not. I tried to talk to her about it a while ago, that we took everything out and looked. There wasn't anything there, but she's back at it. Okay, so see that as soon as you add that water in, you get some little light spots within the dark that are pretty. Yeah, I think I might like that quite a lot, but I'm not sure. Well, I'm going to see how that does before I do any more. And then you can also see, too, I've started putting a little bit of shape and darken some areas in these leaves. I did it very, very loosely, but I can't do that right now because this is all wet. So let's go back to the Chardonnay, which is really interesting the way it's pressed and everything here. And I feel like it's important. It says something about her. I've got this color that I had mixed up that I was using in the background before. I hope you have some of the same because I don't remember. I think this is probably some nickel azo and some cerulean. It's my best guess. Well, I need something darker. I need to pull some shadows in here. So I think what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to take what I have here. This is some of the same as what I have over there. I think I'll take some of that. And I'm going to put some other stuff in it. Stuff, you know. What stuff? I don't really quite know what stuff yet. I've been in an ultramarine mood for a couple of days. Okay. So there's some ultramarine. But, gee, we've got to dull that a little bit. Rather than, well, yeah, it needs to go dark. Let's try just a tiny bit of burnt umber. A little burnt umber can go a long ways, depending on what you're doing with it. Okay. So, the smart thing is to come over here to my test space. It's really nice to have extra space on what you're working on because you're more likely to remember to use it. I forget to show it to people. And quite frankly, I forget to use it, but I should. So that's really, if you thin it out there, you can see it. It's really, see, it's a blue-gray. And that's really what I need here because I've started some of these colored shadows. Oh, dear, let's see. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and show this part. So I'm going to make some areas a little bit darker. Be sure you wash your brush out really well. You see, I've got my round brush, so I'm laying it sideways because I've been in a round brush mode lately too. I watched Shirley Nichols working, and she's working with a round brush, and it's looking so good that I gave in to the temptation here. I don't want much color here. I don't want it to be very strong, but a little bit would be nice. There. So, there we got that. Let's show this little shadow right back through here. Oops, I'm running into water I already laid out. Okay, well, so let's talk about, wait a minute. Pull that up. Let's talk about washing your brush out very briefly. I have noticed here lately that a lot of people are having trouble with, you know, when they come and add the water and they blend. Let's see. Let's make some right here. So they've got something down, and then they come in and they, whoops, I messed up. Okay. They take their brush and they do that with it. Is that showing up? They take their brush and they do that with it. And then they start to blend the edges, and it always runs out into here. Now, two reasons. One, they may have too much water going in here. But the other reason is they didn't wash their brush all the way out. By the way, I can take care of this edge just by taking my squeezed out brush and doing a little bit of that. As long as I'm real gentle, you can wind up with some really rough looking areas if you're not careful, because you can. You need to have enough water, but you can also pull just enough water out that it's not flowing. When the water's flowing, that's different than being really wet. That's like being, well, I'll tell you when to do that. Duh. Okay, but here's the thing. Don't wash your brush out like that. Take your brush in the bottom of the water. Make sure you're bending it. Never the tip, obviously. But you're bending it down like that so it's splaying out the bristles, because that's separating. And pull it. Don't ever push it that way. Pull it. And that is splaying out those bristles and letting fresh water get into the interior of the brush, so you're getting all the color out. I just thought I'd mention that. I think everybody that's watching the portraits is already acutely aware of that, but I was going to say it. Okay, so we're putting in some shade. Oh, I like the colors. I like what that's doing. Let's see. So frequently, I go in with color that's really too dark for where I'm working. Okay, like right here. Because I'm working juicy wet. And so I could pull that color up if I want. But I may just soften a lot of edges. And sometimes that I'm pulling up color as I'm doing that. So there. Yeah, I like what that did. Now this edge, which is a little too green, but I'm going to leave it. This edge should really curve back around from us, because I don't want to. Here's the thing. In the picture, it's quite sharp. It's almost like it's creased there or something. But the fact is that I don't want that to stand out quite so much right here. And so I'm just going to put a little color right along that edge. And then I'm going to soften that. Okay, so see, that kind of rounds it, and as it does it, it kind of makes it less important. Okay. And I've got more of the picture showing, you know, here's the end of the photo, and that's where we're going to crop it off, is up here. But anyway, I think that's dry enough to lay this out here now. Oh, better not. Okay, so again, some of this blue-gray mixture. And remember, the blue-gray was made using some of the base colors that I've already got for the blue in here. She's got this nice crisp, looks like freshly ironed garment on. I don't know the proper name for it. I was just calling it a shirt, but you know, there's a shadow coming up on the elbow. See the elbow right there? Right here. I think that softens it a little bit. It means I'll have to come back and add more shadow in the background later. But I think I like that area. And I think I'm going to soften that edge a little bit. Now that bears watching for a minute because that may change on me. I'm going to squeeze my brush out a little extra and go over that ever so gently. There's a little spot there. Okay. Maybe this area right here. Well, I guess I'll put a little shadow in there. I wasn't going to, but maybe I will. I just barely want anything there. That's enough. That's enough of that. So I'm going to go back to working with my base color in these areas, and then I may darken with that. So that is this mixture that I talked about before. It's got some, see this might have some Quinn Gold in it too, I don't know. But it's sort of a turquoise mixture that I made up here. Oh, that looks greener. You know what? That's where the blue floated to the top. I think I'm going to have to add some. See, this is old that had dried, but it was really wet when it dried, and apparently the color had separated. As frequently happens, some pigments separate from others. So I'm going to put a little more. What I think I had in here was cerulean. Looks like, okay, that looks like the color I'm looking for. I'm also going to go get fresh water. See, I'm not really thrilled with the shadow colors that I had put in here before. I think this is much prettier. But this is, unfortunately, this is pretty weak. So this is my lighter mixture, not my, remember, not my dark gray. This is my light sort of turquoisey something-ish stuff. Okay. I think that's dry enough. I can. And I will probably use very little. See, I could make a line all the way up here because there is an area there that should be this dark, but I'm not going to do that. That tends to get people into trouble. They have a line that starts to dry, and not only that, but they're thinking in lines, and it just doesn't go well. So that's a little too dark, I think. Let's just pull a little of that up. And I might leave it dark right there next to the child because there is an occlusion shadow there. Okay, and I need to get these edges wet. Oh, yeah, they were starting to grab. There are certain pigments. Ooh, there's a little naughty spot there. We'll just have to paint that out with white ink later. There are certain pigments that tend to grab the paper. And anything with zinc in it tends to do that. But other things do too. I mean, some things are just, some of the metals seem to have a drying effect. So this cerulean, which is made with chromium, seems to do that sometimes. It's really a pretty easy pigment to work with most of the time, but, you know, there's always a but, right? That looks a little bit greener, and I don't want much here. I just wanted to counter some of the reds I had in that. Okay. Now maybe we need to come, we definitely need to come under here, but I'm going to let that dry first. I just as well leave that alone, I guess. Got too much on my brush. Remember, a big brush like this, the point on this is not as pointy perfect as I would like for some things. But in general, you can use a big brush like this, like a little brush, simply by not loading up the whole brush. And then you've got a little brush, but, you know, you got to have a good point on it. And I think this one had a good point at one time. I think I killed it. That's why I'm urging everybody to be real careful with how they handle their brushes. Especially, and mostly I'm talking about, but most especially the rounds. And if you've got a big round, you paid a lot more for it than a little round. And so, I guess you could think of it as that point being a little more valuable. I'm going to pull up more of this color. See, and for the most part, not always, but for the most part, I'd rather start out with a little too much color than not enough, as long as it's plenty juicy. Oops. See, I want some variation here. I don't want it to be totally flat. Okay, I'm going to leave that like that for now. I may come in and put a little bit of shadow right there. You know what? I think that's dry enough I can. I'm going to put a little triangle of shadow right here with this color. And then we'll come in with the gray later, only small bits of the gray. And kind of shape some of this a little better. I particularly want to pull that crease in there. But again, you want all your creases to have variety in them, just like everything else. You don't want fence post creases. Fence post creases. You don't want that. I think I'm going to go ahead and strengthen this one a little bit. In fact, I'm going to make it a little bigger. I kind of didn't place it quite right. There's another thing about this that is bothering me. And that is, I lightened it some here. And you can see it's a pretty pronounced crease. But I feel like my line there feels a little too strong in the painting. More so than it does here in the photograph, for that matter. So, I'm going to take a swipe through there with good old Mr. Clean, my best friend. Remember, Mr. Clean does have to be wet. Now that feels better to me. Yeah, I'm happier with it. I'm really not happy with this. It's not too bad, though. We'll live with it. Okay. Let's come back to this thing now. It's a little too bright. And that's stands out a little too much. That stands out too much, really. You know, this is just supposed to feel like part of foliage. I made these shapes even littler than these shapes over here. I'm pretty pleased with these. I didn't drop any extra color in there. Well, let's see what a little burnt umber will do. They just come in through here. I like a lot of this. I just wanted a little more variety of color. And I also think I'm going to have to do something with these. I was thinking I had to make them darker, but now I've put this darker background in. Maybe they're going to stand out enough. I wanted them to be a little stronger than they are here, or than they were. Maybe I've got what I want now. I'm not sure. Okay, so forget burn number until I get back and look at it. When I'm doing a demo, I tend not to spend enough time looking at my work. Okay, let's see. Well, we do want a little burn number. Just putting a little burn number in with some of this green. Hey, you don't necessarily want to use the same green I'm using. I don't know that it's that good. Let's see what this looks like now when I soften it. Remember, that's still pretty wet, but it's still very concentrated. So very concentrated means it doesn't have as much water in it. So let's just noodle around there. And you notice I didn't do much ahead. Well, partly because I didn't know if I was going to like it, but also because let's add a little of this in. Yeah, mostly because I didn't know if I was going to like it. That's just a drip that's kind of running there. I'm going to leave that. That's good. Did I do that intentionally? No. I just had sense enough to leave it. I think this is working really well. I think this works better than what I did on this side. So, let's do a little more of it. Maybe we'll darken this part of this leaf and of this one. So you see, I was sort of like I put a vein down the middle of it. And then I'll start spreading it out. Rather than putting a nice big wash on it, I'm just putting stuff there. You know, stuff. A little bit of blue into it. I think I want to soften that edge. And see, this is just purely intuitive. It's just I look at it and think, I think, you know, I didn't have a plan. That's what makes demonstrations so kind of hard, is getting out there and doing something in front of people when you don't have a plan, because you don't work with a plan, or not that much of a plan. Some of us don't. Some people do. It's okay if you do. I might like that. Again, I'll have to see it dry and from a distance. I think I'm going to just soften this, keep it kind of flat for now. So all I'm doing is I'm blending it, I'm making it closer to the background so it doesn't stand out quite as much. And I'm careful not to leave some kind of little halo around that trunk here. Okay. That up there, I might just leave all that. I don't know. Okay, I'm going to stop.